Welcome to The Shift Show with Adriana Bucci. Join me every week to learn all about narcissistic abuse recovery, healing from physical and emotional pain after the abuse, and everything else to do with toxic people and how they affect your physical, emotional, and mental health. And no, you are not the crazy one. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Let's get right to it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Shift Show. Today, I'm going to be doing a pep talk for adult children of narcissistic mothers because, as we all know, Mother's Day is just around the corner this weekend. So, as a life coach for survivors of narcissistic abuse, I've seen firsthand the impact that a narcissistic mother can have on her children. So it's important to understand that this episode is specifically geared towards those who have experienced abuse at the hands of a narcissistic mother. It might not apply to everybody who listens to this podcast, and obviously it will not apply to those with normal mothers. So, as we all know about narcissistic mothers, they are driven by their insatiable need for supply. They look for validation, attention, praise, recognition, and energy from their children. They don't see their children as individuals with unique needs and desires, but rather as extensions of themselves. They don't go into parenthood with the idea of, I'm going to have children for the purpose of, I don't know, showing them how beautiful the world is or whatever reason people have children for. They go into it for the purpose of having a lifelong source of narcissistic supply. So, pretty much, narcissistic mothers go into parenthood wanting a lifetime source of supply. They don't have children for the purpose of showing them how beautiful the world is or whatever the right reasons for having children are. They go into it for the purpose of having a lifetime source of narcissistic supply. So, they basically want you to be their emotional caretaker for as long as they live, and that is your job. You are put onto this planet with a job. So let's start talking about the cycle of abuse. So it's love bomb, devalue, and discard. And narcissistic mothers do actually love bomb their children, and it can be really hard to recognize it. So, because when you think of love bombing, you think of like a relationship with somebody, the early stages, the honeymoon phase of a relationship. And when you have a narcissistic parent, they don't have to like introduce themselves to you as like this knight in shining armor or whatever. So, love bombing is pretty much whatever you want to hear from your narcissistic mother. And this obviously happens in childhood as well. So, this is when your mother, she gives you excessive attention, praise, and affection. And it can be very overwhelming and confusing for the child because all of a sudden they're receiving all this positive attention. So, it's important to understand that this love bombing is not genuine and it is not sustainable. It's just a means for your narcissistic mother to obtain supply from you. And of course, it's a very short lived phase. It wears off very quickly, and it usually wears off as soon as the narcissistic mother is satisfied that she has gained your trust or she's gotten whatever she wanted from you. And this is universal for narcissists in general. As soon as they are done love bombing you, that's when the devaluation starts. And the love bombing is really whatever they have to say or do in order to gain your trust. So it's just so important to understand that it is abusive because it is all manipulation. There's nothing genuine about it. It is just a means to get you into the devalue stage. And the devalue stage is pretty much when they start criticizing you and making you feel like crap about yourself. You start walking on eggshells, you feel like you're on edge, and you're getting gaslit and, just being manipulated in order to doubt your own perception of reality. And obviously, for a child, this is very confusing. And this is pretty much how the conditioning from the abuse starts at such a young age in your formative years. And then once she's done with the devalue, she will discard. And this can be a very painful experience. And the discard phase can actually be very confusing as well. It's, you know, in childhood, it can be like just threats of kicking you out, or in my case, it was threats of my mother calling children's aid on me, which I used to think was to protect parents because that's what she told me it was. So, it really just depends on the dynamic. They don't Obviously, it's illegal for your mother to kick you out of her house when you're still a minor and all that kind of stuff, but it's just important to understand that this cycle does happen even in childhood. And it's obviously very confusing because you were being love bombed shortly before that. So you have to keep that in mind that this is just the cycle. And this obviously carries out into adulthood. So it's when with Mother's Day coming up, you might be getting a lot of the devalue stage or the love bombing stage. So the devalue stage would be like, oh, you're gonna ruin Mother's Day for me like you always do. You didn't get me the right gift, blah blah blah. And when you really think about it, it's very childish behavior at the end of the day, or she might start love bombing you in order to convince you to, do something nice for her for Mother's Day so that she can have photos for Facebook in order to flaunt to other people and get supply that way. So it's just important to recognize when you're in each stage of the cycle of abuse because let me tell you, hey, when you're dealing with a narcissist, you are in one of the three phases, whether you like it or not. So it's either going to be a love bomb, a devalue, or a discard. There are no in betweens. And if they're being nice to you, this is universal with any narcissist, you're being love bombed. And yeah, so the discard stage, it can be like you've been completely abandoned by your mother. And, it really depends on what is going on. And setting boundaries is super important in order to protect yourself from all of this crap at the end of the day. And it's important not to internalize all of the shit that your mother has said to you because at the end of the day, it's all done with the purpose of gaining supply. Supply is your emotional reaction. It's you being in a bamboozled state. It's you feeling emotions of guilt, shame, or fear, because these are all emotions that make you easier to control at the end of the day. And that's the narcissist's goal. So, this is what you have to keep in mind. So, just being aware of the cycle of abuse is super important. And this can help you also understand that none of this is your fault and that you absolutely deserve so much better. So, something that is a main theme that happens around Mother's Day is dealing with guilt. And guilt is obviously a very common emotion that adult children of narcissistic mothers feel all the time. You might be in a constant state of guilt. You might know logically that you didn't do anything wrong by having boundaries with your narcissistic mother, and that's great, but emotionally it's a different story altogether. So it's just important to understand that feelings are not facts, okay? Just because you feel guilty, it doesn't mean that you are guilty of committing some sort of heinous, horrendous, disgusting crime. You are allowed to have boundaries with your mother even if it's Mother's Day, okay? And the best way to get rid of that feeling of guilt is to actually let yourself feel it. Because what you'll come to understand once you actually allow yourself to feel the emotion and process it is that the guilt is not yours, it's actually hers. And she projected it onto you. She's the one who abused you your entire life. And you did absolutely nothing wrong. You were just there. You don't get to pick your parents at the end of the day, right? Like you didn't walk up to your mother's door before you were born or before you were adopted by her, however it is that you were acquired by your mother, and, put a gun to her head and say, you know, take care of me or else, right? Like she had the choice at the end of the day. And, you know, you did not have the choice whatsoever. You just happened to be there. You were just there. So you have to keep that in mind. And narcissists are going to absolutely make you feel like shit for not giving them what they want, and what they want is supply. You might notice that if, you're not giving your mother supply, she will discard you, for example. So she might just stop talking to you because it's just not worth it, or she'll start devaluing you and telling you how stupid you are and how awful you are and just start criticizing you. And, even if you do give her the supply she's looking for, it's still never going to be enough. So if you give a narcissist anything, if you give them an inch, they're going to take an entire 10 kilometers at the end of the day. So just something to keep in mind. And, you have to just really keep in mind that you did nothing wrong. And a really great way to release the guilt is to journal about it. So I would encourage you to. I used to have a free guide on journaling, but my website is. I had a whole thing with my website recently where it completely crashed and I had to redo the entire thing. So I'm still working on that. So I will just give you the instructions in this podcast episode rather than linking my free guide. And eventually, once that's back up, it will be back on my website and all that great stuff. But pretty much, you want to set a timer for 20 minutes and just vomit all of the words in your head onto the paper and just be completely brutally honest with yourself. Like, just brutal honesty. Use as many swear words as you need to. Like, this is when you're journaling, this is for you. and for your eyes only. And you're going to rip it up at the end of the 20 minutes, anyways, because that's going to tell your subconscious that this no longer serves me. And it's a very important part of the exercise. So, yeah, just be completely honest with yourself about how guilty you feel, everything that's going on with Mother's Day and all that fun stuff, and just, see where that takes you. Because the more that you suppress those thoughts, the more that you suppress those emotions, the more that they don't go anywhere. So if you are releasing those thoughts onto paper, they have somewhere to go. So just something to keep in mind. And this is a really great way to start your healing journey, doing this journaling exercise every day with whatever it is that's on your mind, anything that comes up for you on that particular day. And I do have an awesome new Mother's Day survival guide that I will link here. And you can purchase that if that's helpful. If you want to take things a step further on your Mother's Day survival journey, you'll be able to find the link for that in the description. But you can also just, journal about whatever it is that stresses you out about Mother's Day. And the thing with emotions is that they are not a mental process, they are a physical one. We tend to think that we have to think about our emotions and then we're going to end up in a dark place. And then that's absolutely a great way to end up in a dark place if you're overthinking your emotions over and over again. But actually feeling those emotions is the way to process them. So you want to actually notice where the emotion is in your body. So when you're journaling, after the 20 minutes is up and you've ripped up your paper, notice what's going on in your body. You might feel your guilt somewhere, anywhere. There's no right or wrong place for it to be. It could be in your stomach, it could be in your head, it could be in your hands. You might feel like a wave of heat, whatever it is. Just remind yourself that you are safe. It is safe to feel your emotions. You're not going to die from feeling your emotions. And the brain associates emotions with death, especially when you're raised by a narcissistic mother, because they have you walking on eggshells in your formative years as a child. So that is something to keep in mind, that you were never given the opportunity to be able to express your emotions in a healthy way. So journaling is a really great way to give yourself that gift that your mother could not give you. So allow yourself to feel exactly what you're feeling. And of course, if it's too much for you, then definitely speak to a therapist or, a coach that's trauma informed or someone that you trust that can help guide you through these emotions. But basically, what you're going to do is feel it in your body. And once you feel it in your body, it's going to reach its maximum level of intensity. Remind yourself how safe you are. And then the intensity will start to dial down. And when the intensity dials down, that actually means the emotion is releasing and you don't have to do anything about that. That means you did it right. So once it dials down, wherever it is in your body, that means you're actually processing the emotions. And you might not feel anything when you first start journaling, and that's completely okay. But, it might take a few weeks of journaling, and that's okay too. As long as you're being brutally honest with yourself, that is what counts. And the other thing that I want to talk about is other people. So when it comes to Mother's Day, mothers are put on a pedestal. And this entire podcast episode is not to diminish, how difficult motherhood is and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that it's a very difficult job and all that. And, it's awesome to appreciate the healthy mothers out there. But when you've had an abusive mother, a lot of people don't understand. And it's partially because society really places mothers on a pedestal. They're just seen as perfect angels who can do no wrong, and they would never have children for selfish purposes. And honestly, at the end of the day, not every mother is a perfect angel like how they are portrayed on Mother's Day. So, obviously, if you're still listening and if you're still listening to this episode here, you know that very well. So, enablers and flying monkeys are in abundance around Mother's Day. You might be getting phone calls from your aunts, your grandparents, random family friends, people that you haven't spoken to in a long time, especially if you're low or no contact, calling you up to encourage you to start talking to your mother because Mother's Day's coming and, maybe she's changed and blah, blah, blah. And they're basically working for your narcissistic mother at the end of the day, and they're not on your team. That's what you have to understand. They do not have your back. You know, they either don't want to be a target themselves or they're really that naive about the situation. And at the end of the day, what you have to understand is that narcissists don't abuse every single person that they come into contact with. So, you know, they abuse those that are closest to them. So these people who are telling you and encouraging you to go speak with your abuser, they have no idea what they're talking about. They have not lived one day in your shoes. And the best way to deal with them is to not deal with them. Don't give them any information because they're absolutely going to report back to your mother. And that's going to be a way of her getting secondary supply from you. Now, if you are in contact or you're still living with your mother and you're doing some sort of event for her, just be a gray rock. And that is where you basically be as boring as humanly possible. Don't give any emotions in your responses because that's what they're looking for at the end of the day. That is what they want from you. They want an emotional reaction. And when you starve them of that kind of supply, they might have a hissy fit. And that just shows how immature they are. Let them be a thunderstorm of craziness in their miserable corner of the universe, okay? And when it comes to enablers and flying monkeys, you want to be a gray rock with them as well. One word answers. You don't have to go into full detail about why you're not talking to your mother, whatever the case may be. And, it's just not worth wasting your energy trying to make people understand what they're refusing to understand at the end of the day. So, just something to keep in mind. So I hope that this pep talk has been helpful. You absolutely got this. I know that this weekend is so hard for survivors of narcissistic mothers, and it can be a real shit show. And it's a whole thing, right? Especially with Mother's Day and how society pedestalizes everything with Mother's Day and all that kind of stuff. There are actually some companies that have started sending out emails asking if like you don't want to receive Mother's Day news from them, which is really cool. So, it sounds like some things are starting to catch on a little bit, but obviously society really does have a long way to go. So, you know, just understand you are absolutely not alone. It's okay if this is a shit show for you. It's okay if this is a difficult time for you. And it's going to be okay. Just remember, it's one day. Okay. It's okay if it's just any other day for you. And I would encourage you to look at it that way, that it's just literally any other day. It's just a Hallmark holiday. Right. And if you're a mother yourself, make it about you. Okay. You don't have to make it about your own mother. You're the one who's doing the hard work breaking generational cycles, and that makes you an absolute fucking badass. So way to go. And if you're child free, of course, you've broken the cycle in that way as well. So that's awesome. And you might even be pressured by your narcissistic mother to produce grandchildren for her. And that can become a whole thing too. I think that's a completely different podcast episode though. But at the end of the day, you don't owe your mother anything. That's the whole point of this episode. You owe her absolutely nothing. You did not choose her. She chose to take on the responsibility of having children, and she failed miserably. All right? Like the one person who was supposed to be the safe person for you failed miserably at that job by narcissistically abusing you, and it's not okay. All right? So, just a whole bunch of things to keep in mind. I hope that this has been helpful. And like I said before, if you want to take things a step further, I do have an awesome Mother's Day survival guide that I've linked here right in the description. And you can get your hands on that. I made it specifically for adult children of narcissistic mothers. There's journaling exercise, reflection questions, all that fun stuff. And just remember that the healing journey is not a linear one, okay? It's baby steps. It's going to be a lifestyle change. When you start your healing journey from narcissistic abuse, especially from being raised by a narcissistic mother, it is we like to think that we have this idea that healing is like, you do the work and then you're okay for the rest of your life, and that's really not how it works. It's really all over the place. It's not a linear process whatsoever, and it's not easy. Healing is not for the faint of heart, but it is so worth it. And journaling is a really great first step if you have a trauma informed therapist who actually understands narcissism and doesn't encourage you because that's your mother or whatever to speak to your mother, and they actually listen to you, then that's great. They are very difficult to come by, those types of therapists. They're unicorns. So if you've got a unicorn therapist like that, keep them. Otherwise, there's coaches as well. I offer one-on-one coaching for survivors of narcissistic abuse, and a lot of my client base is adult children of narcissistic mothers. So I will put the link for that as well in the description. And, just keep in mind you can heal on your own as well. There's nothing wrong with that, too. It's good to have some guidance, but that's not for everybody. And, journaling is a great step. There's awesome communities online, there's free communities, there's Raised by Narcissists on Reddit, there's Estranged Adult Kids on Reddit. Those are some great free resources to have people to talk to about the situation, because chances are there's people in your life that nobody in your life that you're able to even talk about having a narcissistic mother on Mother's Day, and that makes it really difficult as well, just not really having that support system. So seek the resources that exist online. I do also have my own community membership that is run by myself, and I'll put the link for that too. There's lots of adult children of narcissists in there as well. I have amazing resources, monthly live events, all the things, all the support you could ever imagine. And there's 2 tiers to choose from depending how much support you're looking for. So I've linked that as well in the description. And yeah, just keep in mind you are not alone. You got this. And even though you feel like you're alone and, it feels like the worst thing ever, just remember feelings are not facts. This is not going to be a permanent part of your life. Just because right now it looks like a long journey ahead, it doesn't mean that you're never going to get where you want to be on your healing journey. It's just going to take some time. And there's going to be bumps in the road, and that's completely normal, because here's the thing: as long as you're a living, breathing person, life is going to happen, shit is going to happen. And as long as you're able to build the skills to know what to do when those things happen, aka processing your emotions, you're going to be completely okay. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope this has been helpful. Just keep in mind you're not alone, like I've said so many times already. And yeah, I'm going to stop rambling, and I hope that this pep talk is helpful for you come this weekend. And yeah, enjoy your weekend as much as you can. You got this. Remember, baby steps, one day at a time. And feel free to check out the resources in the description of this episode. And definitely consider doing some journaling between now and Mother's Day as a great way to preserve your sanity. You got this. Talk to you later. I'll see you in the next episode.